Well, let's move on to our next story, the HIMS Super Bowl ad. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal here. HIMS Super Bowl ad spotlights weight loss drug copycats as clock ticks on their business. There's a full-blown war over copycat versions of blockbuster obesity drugs, but their days are likely numbered. During Sunday's Super Bowl, Hims and Hers Health, ticker HIMS, a telehealth provider known for its provocative ads promoting erectile dysfunction and hair loss treatments, aired a commercial portraying America's obesity epidemic as a rigged game where people are denied affordable weight loss medications because of a greedy healthcare system. The ad positioned Hims and Hers, which sells a compounded version of semaglutide, a copy of the active ingredient in Novo Nordisk's Wegovy and Ozempic, as a Robin Hood of healthcare. There are medications that work, but they're priced for profits, not patients, the narrator says, as Childish Gambino's social justice anthem, This Is America, plays in the background. Hims and Hers offers life-changing weight loss medications. They're affordable, doctor-trusted, and formulated in the United States. Predictably, the ad sparked backlash even before the big game. A pharmaceutical lobbying group called Pharma labeled it misleading, and Senators Dick Durbin and Roger Marshall, a Democrat and a Republican, sent a letter to the FDA calling it a deceptive advertisement that failed to disclose side effects or safety risks, unlike traditional pharma ads. A spokeswoman for HIMS said the ad aims to raise awareness to a critical issue, the obesity public health crisis, by showcasing the impact of obesity and realities of the lack of access to life-saving weight loss treatments. And so HIMS stock is way up. The company is doing fantastically, but a little bit of controversy about the compounding strategy. What did you see the ad, Jordy? What did you think about it? What do you think about the ad, just the overall strategy of advertising weight loss drugs at the Super Bowl?
So one, I think that TJ Parker had probably one of the better takes here. I don't know if you remember the post. Maybe we could pull it up. He was hypercritical of it. So for those that don't know, TJ is the founder of PillPack, sold it to Amazon for $1 billion, built a health tech company the hard way, like being very, very, very diligent about following the rules and working well with the regulators. And that's part of the reason they had such a big outcome and were able to be acquired by, a massive player like Amazon. He pushed back and he was basically like, you're completely disrespecting all, patent law with this. You're selling at the same exact price as the people that actually own the IP, and you're playing in a very aggressively in a gray market that isn't, you're not even passing on those benefits to consumers, right? So his main takeaway was, you're selling this for the same cost as the other players, yet you are, trying to position them as taking advantage of consumers. And so he felt it was somewhat disingenuous. I mean, this is not the first time that HIMS has been in hot water. The CEO, Andrew, and this, again, for context, like Hims and Hers was like one of the big success stories out of the D2C era. There was like very few companies that made it
$10 billion, it might be literally the most successful D2C company other than maybe Chewy to come out. But even that's more of an e-commerce platform. But in terms of, huge success for everyone involved.
And so, there was a very long period of time where people said this company was like basically a zero and like shouldn't be public because they were losing a lot of money, and they flipped. And then they were in they had a bunch of controversy. It must have been back in the middle of 2023. But the CEO has, family history in Palestine, and like came out very aggressively in against, sort of Israel's action there. And then the stock dropped dramatically. There was a ton of, short selling pressure. So he's no stranger to controversy. And so anyways, I mean, I think they're just selling so much GLP-1s right now that the market is like, basically what the market is saying to me is, they're yes, of course, they're bending the rules around compounding and but they seem to be okay with that risk appetite because they're printing so much cash off of this that
Yep.
they're like, it's one of those situations where they're like, even if we get, a few $100 million fine down the road, like we'll just pay it and we'll be in a better position with a bigger customer base. And so I just think this is one of those things. HIMS and HERS was like very well positioned to take advantage of this new development of this new drug. And we've talked about, when we talked about Novo Nordisk, Novo Nordisk had very few customers in the US, right? It's very possible that HIMS and HERS is like acquiring more customers on a day-to-day basis, even with heavy competition from Roe and individual doctors and things like that. So
yeah, so I believe Roe is white labeling or reselling and really just a portal to the actual Novo product, which probably means lower margins. Whereas because typically the name brand drug is on patent for a number of years and then it eventually goes generic. But if there is a shortage, the FDA will allow essentially patent infringement from like the patent rules don't apply if there's a shortage of a drug and the FDA determines that the drug is important. And this kind of makes sense. Obviously if there was some sort of cancer drug that everyone was getting a certain type of cancer and there was some cancer shortage, we'd be like, let's make as much as possible in every possible lab. And so the fundamental rule makes sense. And so the FDA recently declared the shortage of Eli Lilly's Mounjaro and Zepbound over, but Novo's Ozempic and Wegovy remain on the shortage list. And so this has allowed compounding to continue unabated. And there's been a big discussion over, when will the shortage end? When will this compounding not be allowed to happen? Is the compounding higher quality, lower quality? There's been a lot of debate there. The company said it's increasing supply and is in talks with regulators as it seeks to get off the shortage list. So Novo does not want to be on the shortage list because it means HIMS can compound. But it's unclear what HIMS strategy will be and post shortage ending. They could wind up acting just as an e-commerce platform to get the real drug, the non-compounded version. There's a lot of different ways. And I think shareholders might be looking at, hey, they're acquiring all these customers. They'll still stick around and buy, the quote unquote real thing, the non-compounded.
Lower margin. The lower margin version of the product.
Exactly. Because I mean, it is, obviously, like the whole dynamic of telemedicine is it is embarrassing to go into your doctor and say, I have a problem with erectile dysfunction or I have hair loss problem. And so you click a button, it's very sterile. You just go through their web flow and then boom, the medicine shows up at your doorstep. Great like consumer user experience essentially. Yeah. And it's the same thing for being overweight. You might not want to talk to a doctor about that necessarily. And so a telehealth, telemedicine interaction might actually be higher conversion rate for selling these drugs. And if they can sell more of them through, even if they're at a lower margin, maybe there's a bull case here. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, TJ, I pulled up TJ's post. He said this was on January 28th. So they released their ad early, clearly trying to front run the other campaigns. TJ didn't hold back. He said, imagine shamelessly stealing IP, compounding their drugs, which results in patient harm time and time again, selling your fraudulent product for roughly the same net price as the original inventor, and then painting them as the problem in an effing Super Bowl commercial. Very, that's his point of view. Didn't mince words. The thing about compounding pharmacies that's fascinating is you can go and just buy a compounding pharmacy for less than $1 million and just start making drugs. And so anybody,
there was one in my YC batch. And I think they didn't even buy one. They just set up and got the licenses. And I think they were doing retinoid. It's like a acne medication, skincare basically. So in general, if you're trying to do something with health or FDA, you can usually go the nutraceutical, supplement route, which is basically unregulated. And you can be like alpha giga brain enhancement, and you can say all the crazy things you want because you're not really making claims. You're only making like structure and function claims. Then as you move up, you go into compounding, and then eventually you go into FDA
Yeah.
drug. Typically, then you're a biotech company. You go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. You get a patent. You are
Also,
releasing like a real drug, and that's what Novo and Eli Lilly do. Startups in the Silicon Valley sense have never been able to really crack that. It's been more of like the biotech path. You go public really early. It's a different path.
Yeah.
But now we're in this
Also,
gray area, blurry territory.
Yeah, so these weight loss drugs fall into the broadly into the peptide category, and so people are for a while it's been this sort of gray market of you can get peptides and the same you can get peptides for weight loss purposes, but you can also get them for that stimulate testosterone production because peptides end up being these sort of precursors to hormones in the body, so it can be a precursor to HGH, right? It is one. So there's a famous peptide called BPC 157 that is referred to as the Wolverine peptide, and this is what I think Aaron Rodgers was taking, where he tore his ACL and like basically was back on the field in like remarkable time. And so BPC 157 allows you to heal from injuries like just ridiculously quickly. There's you can look up on forums people that are like, I broke my leg and I was like fully healed in like 6 weeks, So it's like really effective, really, but they're super complicated. You're dealing with complex processes in the body. They haven't been, many of them haven't been studied well enough. So it's very much a wild, wild west. I do know there's some startups that are looking to take advantage of the sort of gray market right now. But it's a difficult space to build in because there's so much demand. If you tell people like, I will help you lose weight or be stronger in the gym or recover from injuries, it's going to be a lot of demand for that. But then are you going to be able to build durable IP value without these big pharmaceutical companies coming in? And TJ's point around, patient harm related to compounding, it is a good, there's a, the pharma industry gets so much hate from so many different types of people because they have had numerous incidents where they've done, sort of bad things or released drugs that they knew weren't effective or that had a bunch of harmful side effects. But one thing is if you're getting a drug that is effective, you actually really want it to be made in like the most, professionalized commercial capacity with incredible testing. And that's something that the big pharma companies generally are going to do better than. You could be ordering, compounded Wegovy, and it's just some dude in a random compounding pharmacy that could just be one room somewhere. It's just a license, right? And he's just making this, putting it in, a vial and shipping it off to you, and then you're just injecting this into your body. And so generally, I think we want patients and people that are using these drugs to have access to highly reliable, intensively
it's
tested.
pretty clear that the compounding, like, I don't know, it's not even a loophole, but like the compounding pharmacy regulations were written for, hey, your town might have a local pharmacist, and in a shortage, you should be able to walk down to the pharmacy and they should be able to make you, something that they can't otherwise buy. And then this law, it's very similar to the de minimis loophole for Temu, where it's like, no one thought that you could put $5 billion of product through one company through the compounding regulations. But the free market will always put it to the test.
Yeah.
How about we need a HIMS and hers for mass monsters? What about like Chads and Stacy's, something like that?
No, but I mean,
just
good
TRT, everything.
No, but I'll tell you offline. But a friend of the show is making a peptide sort of like telemedicine type company. He's going to send us some, and we're going to inject it. We're going to inject it on the show.
I don't know about that.
So I'll inject it.
I'm doing great, Natty. And I think I want to maintain my Natty status, but we'll see. Maybe if I get a terrible injury, I'll need to give that one a try. There's an interesting wrinkle in here. Once you have a large customer base, you essentially have a large voter base on your side, and they could demand regulatory changes, which explores. While Uber disrupted the taxi industry, HIMS and hers is up against Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and the entire pharmaceutical and health insurance complex. And the law is pretty clear that when it comes to a shortage when a shortage is deemed over, mass compounding can't continue. That's why HIMS and hers doesn't sell compounded versions of Zepbound. It may take a few more quarters, but Novo Nordisk will eventually produce enough supply to end the shortage of its drug. When that happens, despite their efforts to influence public opinion, compounded versions will likely be severely limited. So, fascinating story. very interesting use of a Super Bowl ad. Drove a lot of contentious debate on the timeline. But
Probably
at the end of the day, we'll see what happens.
Probably good for business. I mean, I knew some people starting weight loss telemedicine companies, and roughly 2 years ago, and I was kind of short new entrants into telemedicine, but many of them, the demand is so significant, and there really is a shortage broadly of these drugs that almost anybody that launched and had any type of quality operating experience, and capabilities, like, did pretty well. So
there were a number of companies that just rocketed,
and in general,
massive rounds.
In general, HIMS, the narrative for HIMS to take the high road is to say, being fat is so unhealthy that we are willing to play in a gray market if it means helping more people lose weight. And they do have, there is a narrative to be like, you can hate what we're doing, but judge us based on on how our customers feel after using the product, because the person that takes a Hims and Hers, compounded version of one of these products and then loses 50 plus pounds, I guarantee you they have positive feelings towards Hims. And so I don't think we'll know the sort of impact, or if Hims was good or bad, until we can see enough customer and patient outcome data.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about it, like from like a technologist, future of the internet thing, like having a doctor that's available on your phone or your laptop over a Zoom call or a text message, that feels like something that will be real. And we've thought very narrowly about these companies early on as like, this one just does ED, this one just does hair loss, this one, now they're doing 2 or 3, but eventually, you could see a lot of young people don't have primary care doctors. They could effectively replace that. And then, hey, we need some blood work, go here, do this. Oh, we actually need you to go in and get a physical. We need to scan you or something, go to this location. But for the basics, and just the prescriptions, it does seem like the future is some sort of online telemedicine. That's not going away. And so, hopefully all the companies that are working on this can get through all the complicated regulations, play by the rules, and win on product. And
I saw somebody on X saying that HIMS was a $1 trillion company.
I've seen that too. That's very funny, but maybe there's something there with like all of healthcare in one app or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. You can make an argument that generally the next $1 trillion consumer company will be in healthcare.
Yep.
Is it going to be HIMS? No idea.
There's never been a medical aggregator in that way. There are obviously massive hospital networks, there's massive drug companies, but there's never been anyone that's succeeded in really aggregating all the market power, where it's like, if you need paper towels, you're going to open up Amazon. And that has not been the case, where it's like, if you need a refill on your medication, there's one place you go. Unclear how much of a winner take all market it is. Obviously it would have to be extremely monopolistic for there to be a $1 trillion outcome in the space, but exciting to watch it play out. And I'm sure there'll be more drama in the future. We'll have to have TJ on. Maybe we'll have to have Andrew Dudum on, the CEO of HIMS. Hear it from him.